Individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today. Former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this.
We don't often hear a sports pundit criticizing a current president for using the FBI as a weapon. However, it is precisely what occurred just now. One of the most prominent and well-known voices in American sports journalism, Stephen A. Smith, has become embroiled in a political maelstrom by claiming that President Donald Trump is punishing the NBA by utilizing federal power. Within hours, Kash Patel, the chief of the FBI, appeared on national television and declared that notion to be the most absurd thing he had ever heard. A sports scandal was forced out of the entertainment pages and into a conflict between media influence and governmental power due to an unprecedented moment. What started as a gambling arrest story has grown into something much more. A discussion on whether the White House has entered the locker room.
Begin with a story that has dominated the headlines. The FBI announced on Thursday that two major operations, one involving the sharing of insider information for betting on NBA games, and the other centering on rigged poker games using high-tech cheating devices, have led to the arrest of more than 30 suspects. Some involved.
We all witnessed the rapid escalation. Stephen A. Smith was live on ESPN's First Take on October 23rd when he issued a cryptic and forceful warning about Trump's impending arrival. He was reacting to reports that the FBI had released indictments related to illegal gambling and poker activities involving NBA players connected to the mafia. That day, 34 people were taken into custody. They include former player Damon Jones, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, and head coach Chauncey Billups of the Portland Trail Blazers. It was one of the biggest incidents of sports corruption in many years. However, Smith clarified to the audience that this had nothing to do with insider bets or gambling addiction. It was about revenge, about a president who doesn't mind upsetting his adversaries, according to Smith. Patel retaliated almost instantly. The FBI director chuckled at the idea that federal raids were motivated by politics during an appearance on Fox News. "I am the director of the FBI," he declared. "I decide which arrests to conduct and which not to conduct." The line that altered the course of the conversation then appeared. He referred to Smith's theory as the most absurd thing in contemporary history that he had ever heard. It was unprecedented for an FBI director to personally address a television pundit. The Bureau hardly ever remarks on conjecture, much less disparages it on camera. However, Patel's remarks made a sporting viewpoint a national news story. All of a sudden, the video of him rejecting Smith's assertion was playing on every news cycle, and everyone on social media was debating if the FBI had simply heightened the suspicion that it planned to close down Patel.
Because the entire media is now rigged around a system of the only crimes that are punishable are crimes committed by Donald Trump or his supporters. If you're an enemy of Trump, there's nothing we can't rationalize by saying, what about Brett Favre? Or what about Donald Trump?
Stephen A. doubled down rather than walking it back. In a matter of hours, he took to the internet to express his respect for Patel's viewpoint while refusing to back down. He reminded the audience that both the Biden and Trump administrations had started the probe. However, the arrest became apparent during Trump's second term, just before the start of the current NBA season. That timing, he said, was not a coincidence. As well as a declaration on his YouTube program Straight Shooter, he clarified that Trump's extensive background in the casino and sports industries supported his claims. For many years, the former president combined personal rivalries in athletics with politics. Whether they were making fun of players who knelt during the anthem, recruiting athletes, or fighting with league owners, Smith said that this individual did not forget previous conflicts. It was a person who could recall who had embarrassed him and when. There was a true timeline behind such remarks. 6 defendants used privileged team information to place fraudulent bets, according to federal prosecutors in Brooklyn, and another group used rigged poker games supported by organized criminal organizations to launder proceeds. However, the appearance of well-known NBA players and the implication of extensive insider access made news. The indictment also mentioned a person who allegedly disclosed LeBron James' injury information before games in order for bettors to profit. Before Stephen A. informed the nation that it was the result of political retaliation, the scandal might have survived on its own.
Point that in the end, you have a president in place that has a lengthy connection to the sports world, rife with friends and enemies. And those who are his enemies, he doesn't mind inconveniencing one bit.
By October 24th, Smith and the highest law enforcement official in the country were engaged in open conflict over the report. The notion that an FBI news conference indicated presidential meddling was ridiculed by Patel, who stated that the Bureau conducted these briefings whenever cases implicated significant public institutions. Smith, however, took advantage of this exposure by inquiring as to when we had last seen a director personally take the stage to discuss a sporting case. He saw it as theatrical, a warning shot intended to shake a league that the president has openly mocked for years. Smith claimed he realized he had touched a nerve the instant Patel appeared on air to make fun of him. Chris Cuomo's News Nation program hosted the following round. Smith seemed composed but unflappable. He told Cuomo, "I said what I said, I meant what I said, I'm not stuttering." He reaffirmed that he was questioning the rationale behind the case's implementation rather than contesting its validity. He claimed that Trump was well known for making a point through theatrics. Smith cautioned that he's not going to forget and that those expecting presidential mercy for the league were foolish. That line cut deep, as we can see. It sounded like defamation to Trump's fans. It sounded to his detractors like confirmation of all their suspicions about the personal nature of power.
Did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA? But we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Cosa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese.
NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, meanwhile, attempted to refocus the discussion on integrity by expressing his profound distress about the arrests. However, by that point, he had lost control of the conversation. Online discussion boards were highly split. The NBA has been on Trump's bad list since the league's social justice rallies and its ties to China, according to insiders who whispered off camera. One side praised Smith for daring to say this, while the other called him foolish for politicizing a serious investigation. Hashtags on social media are divided between "stick to sports" and "Smith was right." The argument had turned into a reflection of the greater cultural conflict that was taking place outside the basketball courts. We can see how each part of this narrative influenced the others. The league's ties with betting businesses came under question as a result of the arrests. It became a political thriller after Smith's mourning. It became a national drama due to Patel's televised pushback. There were actual federal charges behind it all. Athletes are charged with manipulating results, trading insider information, and transferring funds through poker rooms purportedly controlled by criminal organizations. However, the accused athletes were no longer in the news. They were concerned whether the U.S. president had given the go-ahead to send a message, according to Stephen A.
The thing is that if he's salty with you, if he has a reason to dislike you, I'm not saying that delegitimizes the case. I'm just simply saying that he's not going to hesitate to come at you with a level of fervor that you should be aware of. And that's what we're talking about here. But there's another thing that's going on in the NBA right now. And I'm going to tell you something else.
Producers rushed to balance coverage, according to insiders close to the networks, since they knew that each fresh broadcast from Smith might rekindle conflict between ESPN's corporate neutrality and the independence of its star hosts. According to reports, some CEOs advised moderation. Others saw the increase in ratings as evidence that viewers desired more controversy rather than less. Smith's remarks were cut, analyzed, and repeated on political talk shows each time he made an appearance. It was more than just a sports tale. The president, federal law enforcement, and the media all engaged in a power war.
The first indictment involves 6 defendants. This scheme is an insider sports betting conspiracy that exploited confidential information about National Basketball Association athletes and teams.
The matter of timing then arose. Smith said that the entire operation landed precisely at the start of the NBA's opening week, as he pointed to the calendar. Too good a coincidence to pass up. As the league attempted to commemorate its new season, 34 arrests, prominent perp walks, and an FBI press conference took place. Smith referred to that as the real tell, implying that his argument was supported solely by the visuals. Did it happen by accident or on purpose? The audience was left staring at the same query. Is Stephen A. Smith investigating a real-time political hit job? Or has he gotten so far into conjecture that he is blaming the NBA, the FBI, and the president for plotting to keep his own name in the spotlight? What we were witnessing completely stopped being about sports after that initial burst of coverage. It became a battle for credibility between three powerful figures: Donald Trump, the FBI, and Stephen A. Smith. Each performed their role flawlessly. Smith portrayed himself as the lone truth teller, the one with the courage to speak the quiet portion out. He was portrayed by the FBI as careless and a showman seeking attention without supporting documentation. Additionally, as is customary, Trump's closest circle remained silent. Just silence. No tweets, no remarks, no corrections. Furthermore, quiet is crucial in the political sphere. It dared people to think that, yes, this might indeed be retaliation for years of NBA public disobedience by projecting an image of a furious presidency. The suspicion was heightened by the fact that no one in Trump's camp moved quickly to refute it.
That Kash Patel doesn't have any legitimacy to the case that he's pursuing against these individuals. They are clearly looking for more bodies, and you can speculate as to who those bodies are going to be, and how feverishly he's going to go after those people. The man ain't playing. We understand that. We get that part, okay? And I'm not about to sit up here and argue with an FBI director. All right, I'm not. I was born at night, not last.
This past is not new to us. Neither this month nor even this year was the beginning of the conflict between Trump and the NBA. League stars have been criticizing him for social concerns and international relationships for almost 10 years. Trump blasted out what he perceived as hypocrisy, boycotted games, and publicly ridiculed athletes. He attacked teams for anthem demonstrations in 2017. He was accusing the league of pandering by 2020. The rift was not only political, but also cultural. Stephen A's argument fell into well-known territory when he cited this timing and stated that it made sense that Trump would view the NBA as an adversary. The retribution idea, according to Smith's followers, is consistent with a leader who recalls rights and reminds opponents who has the upper hand. That is a stretch, according to critics, but even they acknowledge that Trump's strategy has always been dominance and show. Kash Patel's response was crucial because of this. He walked to the burnt land rather than letting the claim dissipate in silence. It wasn't only odd for the FBI director to refer to a sports commentator's viewpoint as the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, it was practically unimaginable. The number of times a bureau chief has entered the media frenzy to make fun of a specific person can be counted on one hand. The speed of it posed its own questions, and it seemed intimate. If the accusation was unimportant, why respond so forcefully? Few according to legal experts, Patel was defending the institution's reputation. Others question whether his rage merely raised suspicions that he was attempting to conceal something more significant. Because it's no longer just Stephen A. yelling from the sidelines after the FBI director gets involved in the dispute. In real time, two national leaders are vying for the public's trust.
Why are we acting like I'm making this up? I'm going to repeat what I continue to say to y'all. And by the way, just so you know, in the interest of just being real and making sure that you understand who I am as a journalist and a commentator.
The narrative started to revolve around motivation and ego from that point on. The identical question began to circulate across press rooms and studios. Is Stephen A. Smith acting in this way because he genuinely thinks Trump is specifically targeting the NBA? Or because he understands that he is untouchable because he is the only one brave enough to say it aloud? That distinction is important in a media environment that is fixated on indignation. For years, Smith has worked to project an image of himself as brave and unstoppable. Additionally, this conflict provided the ideal setting for its reinforcement. He wasn't merely defending a hypothesis when he transformed a government probe into a story of bravery. His personal mythology was being reinforced.
The announcement comes just as the NBA season was starting and not only involves a current coach of the Portland Trail Blazers who's accused of being part of a rigged poker game involving mobsters in New York, but in a separate indictment, a former unofficial Lakers assistant coach accused of leaking injury reports to gamblers so they could bet big against.
He deliberately adopted that identity, as we can see. He told the audience about his 30 years in the business and the times he was made fun of before being proven right. His demeanor was more akin to that of a guy making a historical assertion than that of a television commentator, challenging naysayers to laugh now and later offer an apology. For Smith, being correct is only one aspect of credibility. It's about making it long enough to catch up. Because of this, his core following applauded him as a truth-teller who had finally entered the same battlefield as politicians and federal power brokers, despite political observers calling his allegations risky. In this way, the scandal shifted from being solely about basketball to being a conflict of identities. Stephen A. placed himself with Trump and the FBI director rather than beneath them. In front of the entire nation, three men who were in charge of their respective followings traded blows. Smith has his millions of followers, Patel has his bureau, and the president has his rallies. Everybody is aware of the drama of authority. Everyone understands the importance of public defiance. Additionally, Smith appeared to conclude that if he couldn't outplay the FBI or outdo the president, he could at least outspeak them in a society where reputation is power. And that may be just as powerful in the era of nonstop displays.
Breaking news this morning, two big names in the NBA among more than 30 people arrested in connection with federal investigation into sports betting and illegal gambling.
Stephen A. portrayed the character who won't blink throughout. He told the audience that although he had previously been considered insane, the evidence had later proven his innocence. He told them about his 30 years in journalism and how being called outrageous frequently equates to being ahead of the curve. Leaning into the criticism and using it as proof that he had touched a nerve was classic Smith. According to some insiders, this is deliberate branding. His platform gets stronger with each controversy. Others maintain that it's conviction rather than performance, that he's discussing politics, power, and control in a way that few in the sports media dare to. In any case, he has established himself as the sole pundit who is prepared to accuse the presidential authority of using law enforcement to degrade a league that previously embarrassed it internationally. In the meantime, the NBA is suffering on two fronts. The commissioner claimed he felt sick to his stomach about the harm done to the game's reputation and publicly suspended prominent individuals. Sponsors are uncomfortable. Integrity has become the league's motto, and teams are rushing to reassure supporters. However, there is fear behind the publicity releases. The same federal documents that list money laundering schemes and poker clubs supported by the mafia are now being debated alongside political grudges. For the first time in many years, the league's reputation is not solely based on its athletes. It is connected to a narrative of the government. And no amount of branding can change that. We now know that the NBA is stuck in a situation it never anticipated because of this controversy. Between commentators speculating that the entire crackdown is a White House message and prosecutors determined to prove a felony. According to Stephen A., Trump is coming and isn't playing. According to Patel, the agency arrests people for crimes rather than political reasons. Both are adhering to their positions, and it is up to the audience to determine which narrative seems more accurate. Executives in the league are apparently preparing for additional identities to come to light as the FBI expands their investigation. In preparation for subpoenas, player associations are also employing legal firms. Basketball is no longer the source of the uneasiness. It has to do with timing, power, and what happens when those come together. Stephen A. is now more than just a pundit. He is the one who dared to claim that the president was pressuring the NBA through the FBI, and the individual the FBI director attempted to degrade for it. However, the arrests are real. There are actual suspensions. The timing is accurate. One of the most well-liked leagues on the planet is being used as an example, if this is indeed political retaliation. If not, Stephen A. Smith has just declared open war on the president and the country's top law enforcement official using nothing more than a microphone. So, what do we think? Is Stephen A. creating a storm to demonstrate that he is still capable of shaking the room? Or is he discovering a truth that no one else dares to touch? This tale is not yet complete, so please share your thoughts in the comments section below. By no means. Until then, keep an eye out, remain curious, and remember that every news conceals another game.